Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life Groups. We carry on with our major overarching series called Born for This, looking at the purpose God has for us. But we're zooming in the next couple of weeks on this idea that we can do something that matters for God, that we can value these things of creativity and excellence and influence and actually use these God-given things to look to do something that matters with our lives. And so today in Life Groups, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to read quite a big passage of Scripture, and as I read it, as we look at one of these principles that Jesus has for the way we go about our daily lives, I want you to have a couple of questions in the back of your mind so that you can draw as much from the Scripture as possible. So the first question, as I'm reading and as you're tracking along and listening, is this: what are you learning about God? What do you see about his character? What do you see about his nature? The second question, what are you learning about yourself? Is God saying something to you or about the way you work? And thirdly, is anything that you don't quite understand that stands out that you'd love to talk about a bit more? So what am I learning about God? What am I learning about myself? And is there anything that I want to ask questions about because I may or may not understand? So this is taken from Matthew chapter 25. And it's Jesus telling a few parables, a few stories about this idea called the kingdom of heaven, the reason he came to bring his kingdom in heaven down to earth and to see things shift. And he's talking about this from verse 14. And he says this: again, the kingdom of heaven. Again, the kingdom of heaven will be like a man who's going on a journey. He called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one of the servants he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5 along, said, "Master, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. I've gained 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things, so I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The man with 2 bags of gold also came. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more." And his master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You too have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. "Master," he said, "I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you." His master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, it would at least have been returned to me with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. But whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them." So quite an interesting scripture, quite an interesting story about the way Jesus sees the stuff that he's entrusted to us in our lives. But before we steer any of your thoughts, you're going to break up into groups now and talk about those 3 questions. What do I learn about God? What do I learn about myself? And is there anything I don't understand? Once you've talked about that for a while, you're going to come back to the video, and I'll do a little bit of explaining, and then you'll carry on with the evening. So enjoy talking about that scripture. Great. Well, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that you guys talked about and learned from each other, so we're not going to cover all of it, but I do want to highlight just a few things that stand out to me about that scripture, particularly as we're talking about how to really treasure the time, the resources, the skills, the money that God's given us when we're thinking about this subject of doing something that matters. So a few things to notice about God. The first thing is that it's clearly in his nature to trust us with important stuff. Like this king was going away, Jesus has gone away. There's a time where he's coming back, but he hasn't left us aimless. He hasn't left us purposeless. He's really trusted us with his wealth, which is much more than money. It's his mission, it's his purpose, it's his kingdom on earth, and he loves to trust that to us. Secondly, and I think this is quite important, he only gives us what we can handle. He gives each of them according to their ability. Now, we ask the question, well, why does one person have more ability or more income income or more this and the other. God doesn't seem to ask that question, but he does seem to give every single person what they can handle and still expects them to be able to go and live well and do something that matters. And I love, along that thought, he only expects from us what he gives. So to the guy who he gives 5 bags, he sees another 5 as a good return. But to the guy he gave 2 bags, two bags returned and grown is enough. So he's kind of celebrating what the person has, not what the people around him have, which is really important. And so we're not going to have a conversation with God one day about other people's gifts and income and calling. I'm not going to talk to God about what he's entrusted you with and vice versa. But he is going to talk to me about the stuff that he has entrusted me with. So that's a little picture of God. We're a little bit different, hey? We see things quite differently, and I think we need to grow in the way we see stuff. Because sometimes we want to know, hey, why is God being so harsh with that one person? You know, maybe he was risk averse. Maybe he didn't want to get out there and take chances. But the fact is, God says, hey, even giving that stuff to a banker would have been fine. The main thing there was that God didn't want the person living out of fear. And it's the same with us. He doesn't want us living out of a place of fear where we actually squash the stuff that God's given us for the sake of something else. He wants us to be free of fear. He hates fear, and he wants us to get it. He wants to get it out of our hearts. The other thing that we do is we compare, as I've mentioned. We kind of go, well, that guy got 5, and how come I only got 2 or 1? God doesn't think like that. How he thinks is every gift that he's given is generous, and it's true. 1 talent would have been of immense value. The fact that we've been given more or less than other people is not what is important. So I want to end off today with 2 questions that kind of adjust the way we think and live back towards the way God seems to think and live. And the first is this: what has God trusted you with that you are being faithful with? What's the stuff that he's put in your life that you know you're just being faithful with it and living out of a kingdom mindset, doing something that matters? The second thing is a little bit about vulnerability. What do you think God might have trusted you with that perhaps you've buried for a little bit, and God's longing for you to get out there and take some risks and act in faith and actually steward well the stuff that he's given you? So I hope that's a good conversation. Enjoy, and next week we'll be back to look at another principle from Scripture. Thanks so much.